Hey there, friends. This is Bill MacDonald. Welcome to the writing guide for expository and persuasive writing. Today is just going to be a brief interview about the process and purpose of expository and persuasive. But I wanted to share with some of you how I started doing this whole consulting thing in the first place, since many of you have never met me in person, or maybe this might be one of the first videos that you're watching. I was a fourth grade teacher for 7 years in Mission, Texas, at a little elementary called Marcel Elementary. We were self-contained, so we had writing back then, which they called the TOS test. I think it was called the Texas Assessment of Academic Skills. Then I moved to PSJA because I didn't like going through all the construction for about 2 or 3 years, where they changed the Rio Grande Valley Expressway from 2 lanes to 3 lanes, but it took probably 2 or 3 years to do it. And now they're changing one of our off ramps to go from Expressway 83, also known as Interstate 2, as it transitions to 281, the 69 corridor. They're taking forever to do construction on that, so it's like taking forever for anyone to get anywhere, which kind of leads me right into the purpose and the process of writing. If we're talking about persuasive, which is trying to convince people, it's going to have a position that you take, usually inside the introduction, and then you have a body where you give reasons why you feel that way, and hopefully you'll have an ending that brings closure and ties it all together. And my fourth ring, 1, 2, 3, 4, gets a good score, where you try to engage the reader and keep him or her focused on your essay. So today's video will be just on page 1 for all of you that purchased the expository and persuasive writing guide. How you break down the essay using your hand and a little cool looking yellow star that I found somewhere online. How to use your other hand to make sure you do the editing with cups. Turn my hand this way. C for capitalization, U for usage, subject verb agreement, P for punctuation, S for spelling, and another S for sentence boundaries, such as run-ons or fragments. We'll also be talking a little bit about our arms, where once you finish the essay, you want to do the content. When you're improving the conventions of the essay, you're working on the grammar, which is the cups with, don't forget, 2 S's, one for spelling and one for sentence boundaries. I'll show you this all on page 1. And then the arm is improving the content of the essay before you turn it in. So if you think of ER as in emergency room, that's basically what we're doing to the essay, the X-ray, to say, how can I make it better with editing? Maybe turn a 1 into a 2, or a 2 into a 3, or perhaps a 3 into a 4, by just fixing the conventions mistakes. And how can I improve the revising by using my acronym ARM, where I'm adding, removing, replacing, or moving content to make it better. So the organization is based on the revising is based on the organization of the essay that you're writing and the development. The editing is based on the conventions. So if you put 3 letters together, D, development, O, organization, and C, convention, spells doc. So basically, you're going to be a writing teacher called the writing doctor. What's up, doc? Trying to improve 4 basic things. Okay. Why am I saying 4? Because on the rubric, it says you want to have development with voice. See my little V there. Voice is a lot about using higher vocabulary and your voice inside your head or inside your heart. Or, and the second bullet, sorry, it's development with voice, the organizational structure, what expository and persuasive have to look like, and the conventions, the grammar. And you might think of see not just conventions, but make sure that essay part of the organization means it has to have a conclusion. So the little star on page 1 has all of that. So let's take a few minutes to kind of explore everything that we'll be talking about over this webinar series on expository and persuasive. So for those of you that are not aware, all of you who teach 9th or 10th grade, end of course 1 and 2, until the students pass those 2, they'll be taking it. The first one will be next month. So I highly suggest, it'll help you to join the 30% growth and gains in reading and writing in 30 days for $30. So the reason I'm saying that is because the essay that we're going to be focusing on just for this specific video is only worth up to 16 points. And unfortunately, in expository, only, well, I'll say this, only 72% of the kids in Texas got 0s, 1s, and 2s on expository. So it's real important that you really stay focused on how to get more 3s and 4s on this series, which I'll take all month to share with you little by little, so we can kind of show some growth in our 2 purposes of writing. And persuasive wasn't much better. There was only about 35 to 40% of the kids that were able to get 3s or 4s on persuasive. So that means that for end of course students, if the most I'm getting is a 2 and a 2, that adds up to 4. And since they double the essay for the April, June, and December tests, the most your students are going to be able to get on the essay is 8 points. That means the rest of the points out of the 68 possible means that 60 points are going to come from your students' reading skills, 34 points, their ability to actually edit passages, 9 questions on editing, and 9 questions on revising, where they'll be adding, removing, replacing, or moving content, or improving, editing the conventions, which are the cups. So let's take a look. If you're just focusing on the essay, you still want to make sure your students take your paper to the editing and revising emergency room once they've finished with the essay, which is all of those things that are here. Okay, so let's take a look at this hand. I'll zoom in a little bit more here for you so you can see the hand. Unfortunately, I have it with black outline, but it's in yellow. It says, for the introduction, we want a hook. And what it says here is you want your hook and your CIS. So since some of you are still teaching expository in elementary, up to fourth grade, you'll call the CIS the central idea statement. Fifth, sixth, and seventh grade students would call it a controlling idea statement, that whatever they write has to be controlling the entire essay. So they'll get a topic, which is called the prompt, and the hook, central idea, controlling idea. In from 8th and 9th grade in Texas and probably all around the United States, you might call it a thesis statement. And so your thesis, if I put my hand right there and wiggle my muscles, I can feel all the muscles moving because the introduction, the body, and the conclusion are all connected. And if you see here at the bottom of my little star, he's got some shoes with laces because everything in an essay has to tie together. The topic, which we'll call the red light, the prompt, the idea, and all the ideas that your students give, the reasons they use, the examples they use, we'll call those the yellow lights. And then the way they explain them would be like the green light. So you want to go from red to yellow to green, and everything has to tie together. So if you have a great introduction that does have a thesis statement or a position, but the body has nothing to do with the thesis that you wrote and or the topic that was assigned, you're going to get a much lower score. And so those are called either 0 papers or 1 papers, because if they can find only like 1 sentence about the topic, it's possible that the 2 readers can give 2 zeros. Now here's something that we'll learn in the next video, that if one person gives you a 0 and another person gives you a 1, one of them is wrong, because an essay can't be scoreable by one person and unscoreable, meaning a 0, by the other. So they would throw those 2 scores out and 2 different people would grade them. So we're going to learn throughout the lessons that we want to make sure we tell the reader in both expository, explaining, and persuasive convincing, why did you choose that idea? And people will ask me, Mr. MacDonald, how many reasons should I give? Well, for each reason, an example, notice that it spells we, let's go for a ride, okay? For each reason or example that you give, for each why or example, notice that I have 2 fingers. If the why is my thumb, we're going to call that in reading the topic sentence or the main idea. If I'm going to have 2 different reasons, I choose the idea called my thesis, my controlling idea, my central idea, or my position. I've got to make sure if I'm going to give 2 reasons why I chose that idea, then I've got to have 2 different examples to support that reason. Give me an example of what you mean. And so when they say organize your essay, that's basically the basic structure that they're looking for. You don't have to have a hook to get a 1 or a 2, but you do have to have a thesis, a reason, and an example to get 1s or 2s. And an important thing to remember here is you could even have 4 or 5 or 6 reasons, 4 or 5 or 6 examples for your thesis that responds to the topic. And because the organizational structure is there, that you're not telling a story, or you're not sharing just a poem that has nothing to do with anything, or you're not writing out a play, or you're not just writing something, and we'll talk more about how to get zeros. As long as they can see that you have the structure, the basic structure of a thesis, position, some reasons, in hopefully sentences that have this invention called punctuation and examples, then you can usually get ones or twos. In order to get a 3, you have to explain the examples that you use, and we'll get in more into detail on what kind of examples that you can use um, when you're trying to explain yourself. So before you jump to another example, why don't you, instead of teaching 2, 3, or 4 reasons, why don't you just teach one reason and tell your kids, I'm going to model and mentor how to give an example for that reason and how to explain that reason with as many sentences as possible. So the third bullet basically says to develop your ideas in detail. So if you're that teacher that's saying for each reason or example, just give 1 or 2 sentences, that's not development. That's too insufficiently developed. So they don't want a 9th or a 10th grader supporting each reason or example with only 1 or 2 sentences, unless you're just trying to get 1s and 2s. The longer you can spend on each reason slash example, the better your chances are of getting a 3, the third finger on the hand. And sometimes the biggest difference between a 2 and a 3 is how much development that each reason or each example has. Now, here's something that usually goes wrong. If I happen to have maybe 5, 6, or 7 sentences with my reason, the example, and the way I explain it, but I only put 1 period, then that's an E problem, an editing problem. If all they find is 1 punctuation, 1 period at the end of the essay, or 1 period per paragraph, in other words, for the introduction, the body, and the conclusion, what's going to happen is, because the conventions are so weak, even with 10 to 15 sentences, if they only have 1 period, the essay will still get more than likely a 1 for weak conventions. Okay. One of the bullets for all the prompts in Texas says, choose your words carefully. Choose your words carefully. So if this W represents the first letter in the word words, I'm going to show you how to get a 3 to turn into a 4 by using higher vocabulary and voice. The voice that's inside my head, my point of view, perspective, my way of viewing the world based on my thoughts, my opinions, my senses, the things that I see and smell and taste and touch and hear and possibly say, then that's the voice. And that's why I kind of used my ring there. You explode by that special way you engage the reader and make that emotional and mental connection with him or her. So if that's not there, don't expect to get a 3 or a 4. Something else that's important for persuasive, in the rubric for a 4, it does say you may address opposing or alternate points of view. So it doesn't say to spend the whole essay doing that, but in a 3, a 2, or a 1, it doesn't even mention alternative or opposing points of view. But remember that the next to last letter of persuasive is V. So think of the V, that towards the end of persuasive is a V. So you can say, spend a little bit of time in the ending, possibly giving various viewpoints. In other words, the opposite point of view, because usually in persuasive, it'll say, write about whether or not it's better to, as in this last year, to focus on the present, or plan for your future. So if you spend your whole essay saying that you should focus on the present, that's your position, then you want to give reasons, examples, explain and explode that with higher vocabulary. And as part of your ending, you're trying to get a four, you might address, see the little V here, various viewpoints as part of your ending, your conclusion, and what some of you call your call to action. It's basically E, encouraging the reader, E, exhorting the reader, or E, an emotional extension that you make, because in persuasive, you don't just want to explain your point of view, you want to try and convince the reader to kind of think, believe, or feel like you do about your position as well. So once, and you're going to notice that if I put a W here, I'm going to say, what is my wow? What is my hook? My attention getter, my lead? What is my CIS, my central idea, my controlling idea, my thesis, my position, all in the form of a statement, and statement is a sentence that ends with a period, okay? W's, W. So that's why I have the structure as simple as possible. To do well, you've got to have the W, the E, and the E. The red we'll call the topic, the prompt, the red light. What is the topic? What is the prompt? That way I can ask you, what is your wow going to be? What is your why and your examples that you explain and explode and have an ending? I stomped my feet twice because at the end of his body, he's got two shoes. So you can use your ending to kind of tie everything together with the laces. And you can take your paper to the editing and revising emergency room to look for mistakes in cups. And many of you are using this last year to have your kids write still in paper and pencil. So you might have the 26 lines that they can use on the actual final draft. Have a rough draft with 26 lines as well, because you can have them have that scratch paper. And I also suggest that if you're going to have them write online, that they still write at least the basic structure, maybe the thesis, the reason, the examples they're going to use. And it's real important that you understand that my fingers are all connected. So if I use two reasons why, I would call this one sort of like Mr. STAAR's shirt, and this reason his pants. And so I would make sure you tell your students to say, if you're going to have two reasons to support your idea about the topic, they actually have to connect to each other. So it would be sort of like me, I'm wearing a shirt that is connected to my pants by a belt. So what transition, because it does say for a 3 or a 4, you have meaningful transitions and your ideas relate to each other. So that means the reasons have to somehow connect. So if these two hands he's picking up are like body paragraphs, and you're going to have two reasons, then they somehow have to relate to each other. If you're going to have three reasons, the third reason would be like a jacket. So you might say, okay, what scarf are you going to use to transition to the third reason? To leave your head, your introduction what necklace are you going to use to transition to the body? And if you're just trying to get ones and twos, then you can use things like my first reason, my second reason, my third reason, for example, in conclusion. But if you're trying to get threes and fours, they're wanting meaningful transitions. So I'll be showing you throughout the video series how to have really interesting necklaces, belts, scarves, and or socks. And one question that people often ask me, Bill, is it okay to have one idea with a thesis statement and a hook, one reason that you explain and explode, and an ending? Yes. They don't care how many reasons your students have. All it says on the adult and the student rubric, which is on the prompt pages, organize your essay and develop your ideas in detail. So the question, if it is, can I have just one reason? Yes, and I wouldn't suggest that you overwhelm your students with too many reasons. And some of you are even telling your kids to have a thesis statement that has two ideas in it that respond to the topic. That is okay, but it's a compositional risk. So let me show you what I mean by that. If I say that it's better to focus on the present because it allows you to take care of things right now, and because it helps you build a foundation for your life, those are two different ideas, and you've got to make sure that they are not just related to the topic, they're going to have to relate to each other. So you'll have to spend half of your body supporting your first idea about your uh, thesis or position, and the second half supporting your second one, and somehow connecting them together. If they don't connect, it would be sort of like me grabbing these glasses and then cutting them right here, because two people are going to read that essay, and if they don't see a connection between the two ideas to each other, and your in terms of a dual thesis statement that the student gives, or a dual position statement, then the most you can get is a one or two. Now, here's another reason that you might get a one or a two. If the prompt already is like a dual topic, for example, read about how hard work leads to success. Well, if you think of this lens as the hard work and this lens as the success, what they're going to have to see is the cause and effect relationship of, oh, where do they write about hard work and where do they write about success? If your students only write about hard work, sorry, I'm trying to get myself right there. If they only write about hard work, then your students can only get a one or a two, because you're only responding to half of the specific demands of the prompt. And so I can only give you up to half of a four as one reader. So if they instead only say, I'm only going to respond right about success. Well, if I don't link hard work and success together, and then they will write about success, the same thing happens. It's like cutting your glasses in half, because the focus, get it, because of my glasses, is divided, or I'm only focused on one part of the topic, not both parts of the topic. So whether the prompt is dual or the thesis statement that your students or position students, your students give are dual, you better make sure that the two ideas they use connect to each other and all the reasons and examples and the way they explain it, so that you have a great chance to get a 3 or a 4 from two different readers. A 3 being a 6 that turns into a 12, a 4 and a 3 being a 7 that turns into 14, and a 4 and a 4 being an 8 that turns into a 16. Usually, and I think it was this year in persuasive and expository, only 1 to 2% of the students in Texas are able to get 2 4s. So my company is called, for expository and persuasive, May the 4s be with you. But we have to build over the next 30 days to a 4 for about a week or so. We'll play May the 1s be with you, because some of your kids are in Zero Land or La La Land. For another week, we'll play May the 2s be with you. Then we'll play May the 3s be with you. And finally, we'll try to get as many of your kids as possible to 4 Land, so that your chances of getting approaches or meets or masters increases because of such a high essay score. So feel free to message me if you have any questions about this. This is the first video of many for those of you who are focusing strictly on expository and persuasive. Message me and I can send you a link to the page on my website. It's $10 for the next several days. It'll be $20. Probably I'm going to change it to $20 at the end of the week, but I will make it available for $10 all of this week only, for those of you who take advantage of that special price. If you are an expository or a persuasive teacher, please share or tag your writing teacher friends. If you are not, but you happen to be watching this, then please share or tag your writing teacher friends. If you are watching it on YouTube and you don't have social media, you don't have Facebook, then you can click the YouTube link that this is coming through, and you'll be able to send that to any friends by text or by email, because some people just don't believe in social media for whatever reason. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I want to give 3 free writing guides away to some of you that are watching this video today. So if you can tell me in a paragraph in the comment section one thing that you enjoyed most about this specific video and why you felt like it was helpful to you, you don't even have to purchase this video series. I'll send it to you for free along with 2 other people. So 3 of you are going to be my winners. So if you are kind of poor and you're financially strapped right now, I can relate to that and I can understand that. So I'm going to help 3 of you who take the time to write a little paragraph, couple of sentences. If there's more than 3 of you that write something in the comment section, then I'll choose within 24 hours the 3 that I felt did the best job of saying what idea that they enjoyed the most, why they enjoyed it, an example of how they feel it's going to help them, and how they explain and explode with higher vocabulary and voice. I'll be giving that away to 3 people. The rest of you can take advantage of my special price of $10 for the rest of this week, or $20 starting next week, and for this one, no matter when you purchase the writing guide for expository and persuasive, you'll get a link to all the videos from beginning to end. That way you can see the whole process. Also take advantage of, if you're also a reading, editing, and or revising teacher, you might want to buy that 30% gains and growth in 30 days for $30 each month, for at least 1 month for those of you who are English 1 or 2 teachers, and for those of you who teach reading from 3rd through 8th grade, you might want to buy it for March and April, and maybe only for May, June, and July if you're one of those teachers that wants to get ahead of the game in terms of the short answer, open-ended questions, extended, and essay responses, because except for the extended and essay, all subjects in 3rd through 8th grade are going to have some short constructed 1-point responses and some 2-point responses where they have to say what the answer is to the question and where in the passage, where in the selection that you can prove it. So I'll be giving lots of different strategies all throughout the summer, every day except for Sunday, because I want to call that my day of rest to be with family and just kick back and relax, like I'm sure that you hopefully would too. God bless you guys. May the 4s be with you next month. But for all of you who have kids who struggle, let's play May the 1s be with you for right now. Our next video is going to be on how 19,000 students in expository and another 20 or 30,000 in persuasive got zeros this past year, and how you can prevent your students from getting those zeros using just one word to remember what not to do. So for now, I'm signing off. Don't forget, if you're wanting to receive the video series for free, take a moment to respond in my comment section, what I shared briefly with you. Hopefully, many of you who have already purchased the video series will be excited and share my link with other people. I might offer a special deal for you on the $30 reading, writing, editing, and revising training, since you're sort of being my human advertising. So goodbye, God bless, and good luck.